Hey, and thanks for clicking play. As said in previous videos, I've always been into collecting DVDs, so I thought I'd unpack some of that, and you've seen some of that in recent pickups videos. But as I'm starting to recollect, and I prefer physical media over owning an online version or over streaming services, because often the movie you want to watch they then run out of license and you can't watch it anyway. So I prefer collecting physical media, and I think now is a great time to pick up DVDs because they can be easily found in charity shops, e-waste stores, or tip shops, garage sales. Still the sort of thing you can easily pick up at cashies, and some high street retailers are still selling them brand new, which is great. But I want to look at some examples today because there's a bit of a trick to collecting DVDs. So let's just look at these. First and foremost, I was very happy to pick up The Thing. My wife had never seen The Thing, so I happily threw it in the DVD player. Picked this up in a local charity shop for $2. You have to have a keen eye, and given I walk around town without my reading glasses, I missed the fact that this said, from the producers of Dawn of the Dead. Because other than that, and other than writing I definitely couldn't read on the back without my reading glasses, there's nothing on the front cover to really tell you that this is in fact not the original The Thing. This is the prequel. Now don't get me wrong, this is a fantastic movie. I really enjoyed it, but I really wanted to show my wife the original first, and of course now that opportunity is gone. I'm still hunting for the original in charity shops. This is a great movie, but why is it labelled The Thing? Why does it not have a different title? That's my beef with that. And that's a theme that will continue as we move on. I recently showed this in a pickups video, and I'm very pleased to have this. Death Race 2000. Now this I don't really have an issue with. So this is the original Death Race 2000. Fantastic movie for the time. Wasn't received particularly well then, and it's a bit of a niche taste even now, but it's a great movie. A trans-America race where anything goes and they get points for running over pedestrians. In fact, this was officially the inspiration for the game Carmageddon, if you were into that. This movie here, this particular movie, was the inspiration, and I believe they originally wanted to go with that license but didn't get it, hence why one of the later ones was called Carmageddon TDR, which is Total Death Rally. Okay. Now another one, and I don't have a beef with this at all, is the Jason Statham version of Death Race. Now look, it's a completely different title, so you know it's not the same film. Fantastic. There are many remakes. Fast and Furious is actually a remake. I don't have a problem with remakes, and this one is particularly well done. What interests me about this particular franchise is Death Race 2000, and there's another one that was more recently made that I need to look up. I think it's called Death Race 3000 or something. That was made in the same style as the original. I need to get that one. But anyway, the original Death Race 2000 was a sort of dark comedy. Has Sylvester Stallone in it actually, and has some really great lines that are they're great because they're terrible. It has even though this is a G, right? So general, that would be a U in the UK. It has full frontal nudity for no reason whatsoever. There's just these scenes where everybody's naked for no apparent reason. Crazy movie. But the message behind this movie is they are fighting, no spoilers, but they are fighting against a corrupt government, okay? And a corrupt media and let's call it a corrupt viewing audience as well that get off on watching people get run over. But it's all backed by a corrupt government. The message changes in this version, and again, I don't have a problem with this, but this is about a corrupt prison system, and off the back of that, a corrupt media component of the privatised prison system, and again, really the sadisticness of the viewing audience. Very different, very different. And there's two more movies in this franchise, but they're more prequels. They're not bad movies, but I actually like just watching this on its own merit, because the other two were nowhere near as good and were direct-to-DVD releases. Good, I like both of those. Point Break, fortunately, in the charity shop, and again, still sealed. I picked up Point Break, and I'm glad it was this version, because when we went to watch it online, I think it's online because I can't find the DVD on my shelf, so I don't think I bought it. There is, of course, a remake of Point Break, completely different movie, just with the same title, same kind of thread, but it's not the original. Give it a different title, please. Give it a different title. Again, one that could have been given a different title, and this is going to be very similar to what I've just said about Death Race. So, Rollerball. Now, pick this up thinking it was the 1970s original. This is in fact a remake from the 90s, and this is actually quite a nice movie from one of the directors of Die Hard, I believe. It's a good movie. This is again more about a corrupt team management structure and corrupt media that feed into, again, a statistic viewing audience. But the original, which if you look up the synopsis online, because I'm yet to re-find the original and I want to watch it, but I want to own it on physical media. The original, it was about a corrupt government system that then pushed through into the media and the sports. So the government element has been removed from this. Amityville Horror, very pleased that I picked this up recently, simply because I got it home, and after realising I picked up the wrong version of The Thing, I was pleased to see that this is, even though it's a special edition, this is the original version of the story of Amityville Horror. But this does have a remake, and you know what? The remake is not bad. It doesn't really change the story too much. It's a bit more modern horror, a bit more jump scary, a bit more show the monster, whereas I prefer the suspense of old horror. But essentially the story is still the same for the most part, so I don't have a problem with that remake. But again, the remakes aren't necessarily clearly labelled. And the other one I wanted to bring up was this. Demolition Man. Now, it's the same movie you and I remember from our childhoods or teenage years, as it probably would have been. But there's a change, and it's a subtle change. And I'm pointing out change for the sake of showing that it's possible. Now, I remember, and I'm sure you do too, even if you're in the UK or Australia, but definitely if you're in America, they talk about the franchise wars, okay? When they're in the future, when he's been taken out of storage, and he's woken up in the future, and they talk about the franchise wars, or the restaurant wars, I think it's referred to in both names, and the winner of the franchise wars, which is why it's the only restaurant you can go to in the future, is Taco Bell. Okay, I'm sure you all remember that being Taco Bell. We started watching this, and terribly dubbed, because you can still see clearly the original lip movement saying Taco Bell, this version says Pizza Hut. And all the Taco Bell signage, even in moving shots, has been expertly replaced. There's no sign of Taco Bell. It all says Pizza Hut. And I thought, far out, is this a mismemory? And the main clue, I mean, it was like nails on a chalkboard when I heard them say Pizza Hut, and my memory went, they said Taco Bell. So I thought maybe it was an Australian release thing, but ironically, we didn't have Taco Bell in Australia, or they didn't have Taco Bell. That's only a recent thing, same as in the UK. But this, I remember in the UK watching it, it said Taco Bell. This DVD says Pizza Hut. Now apparently it's a thing they did around 2003, where the producers, the excuse if you look it up online, was the producers said they felt that Taco Bell didn't have enough global range, people wouldn't understand the reference, so they changed it to Pizza Hut. That's the official story. I would suspect, and this is just my opinion, that maybe there was a licensing agreement involved. Why they wouldn't make that public, I don't know. But surely that's the more likely, that you're going to change that many years later. I don't know, but that would be my guess. I could be completely wrong. So yeah, it says Pizza Hut. Now, why is this important? Two reasons. One is very personal, and one, I'm not going to say it's political, but it's something I'm just going to leave you with. I'm not saying there's anything sinister about these changes. I do find it interesting that two movies from the 70s where the issue was a corrupt government have been changed in modern versions to take out that element from the narrative completely. The personal reason is this. When you're collecting stuff, you want it to be how you remember it. That goes computer games, obviously. You want it to be the same version. If you remember it with a crack tro, you want it to have that same crack tro if you used to pirate your games. Or if, like me, you used to buy them originally, actually seeing a crack tro at the front where you didn't have a crack tro kind of breaks that nostalgic immersion. It's the same with movies and books and anything, okay? You are looking for the version you grew up with, and even one single phrase like Taco Bell changing to Pizza Hut breaks that. So in your collecting, just be careful. There are multiple versions, and it's about like when people talk about book collecting and they're looking for a first edition, second edition, third edition. Sometimes it's about value. I'm not a book collector, but obviously this makes sense. But other times it's about getting that version that you remember, that you originally read, that you have nostalgia for. The other reason I find this interesting, especially as we move to completely digital and it's easier to correct things. In fact, I'm going to sit down and let's have some story time. Welcome to Story Time with Chris. There's the DVDs we were just talking about. Let's put them slightly in shot, shall we? Because that is the context of what I'm about to share with you. Let's just read a bit from 1984. Keep in mind, George Orwell, by the way, worked for the BBC. That's part of the background before he wrote 1984. And he quite openly says in some of the papers that he wrote that everybody writes from a political point of view. But I'm not getting political here. I just find this interesting in the context of changes over time to media. So the protagonist's job, if you haven't read 1984, in the book, is the main character is Winston, and his job is basically making corrections in one of the government ministries. And very early on in the book, it says, as soon as Winston had dealt with each of the messages, he clipped his speak-written corrections to the appropriate copy of the Times and pushed them into the pneumatic tube. Then, with a movement which was nearly as possible unconscious, he crumpled up the original message and any notes that he himself had made and dropped them into the memory hole to be devoured by the flames. What happened in the unseen labyrinth to which the pneumatic tubes led, he did not know in detail. But he did know in general terms, as soon as all the corrections which happened to be necessary in any particular number of the Times had been assembled and collated, that number would be reprinted, the original copy destroyed, and the corrected copy placed on the files in its stead. This protest of continual altercation was applied not only to newspapers, but to books, periodicals, pamphlets, posters, leaflets, films, soundtracks, cartoons, photographs, to every kind of literature or documentation, which might conceivably hold any political or ideological significance. Day by day and almost minute by minute, the past was brought up to date. The past was brought up to date. In this way, every prediction made by the party could be shown by documentary evidence to have been correct. Nor was any item of news or any expression of opinion which conflicted with the needs of the moment ever allowed to remain on record. All history was a palimpsest, scraped clean and reinscribed exactly as often as was necessary. Oh yeah. In no case would it have been possible, once the deed was done, to prove that any falsification had taken place. And there's actually a bit in the book which I haven't been able to find, because I'm not going to read the whole book just to find a certain quote. In fact, I'll look it up on my phone. Hang on. Okay, here we go. So in reference to that, Every record has been destroyed or falsified. Every book has been rewritten. Every picture has been repainted. Every statue and street building has been renamed. Every date has been altered. And the process is continuing day by day and minute by minute. Nothing exists except an endless present in which the party is always right. So yeah, look, I don't have an issue with any of the changes that I've referenced here, but more so it's as we move into the digital age, it is becoming increasingly possible to perpetuate continual correction, and not currently, but maybe into the future that can become a bit of a troubling thing. But it is also interesting that this has been going on for quite a while. So when you're collecting, do just be careful, look at the release dates, not because they might have changed the political message, but because it may not be the exact version that you remember growing up with as a child. Interestingly, 1984, and I'll put some links, download them before they disappear in case they do. But in the early days of Kindles, many people found that they'd purchased 1984 and then one day they turned on their Kindles and it had been deleted. That's a thing that actually happened. The reason was because it was between publishers, so nobody had the rights to put it out there. But the fact that it was deleted from people's devices that had already downloaded it, that's a bit of a worry. And the fact that they did it to 1984, that's quite ironic, because that's exactly what this book is about. Thanks for watching. Don't think I've gone crazy. I just thought it would be interesting. Good luck with your collecting, and thanks for watching.